Hi, I'm Mizzy, and I'm a mixed girl in a mixed up world. This is the second episode in a series of interviews that I've conducted with Brandon Embry's mother. Brandon was a 33-year-old Navy veteran who was found beaten, bloody, and naked in his Asheboro, North Carolina apartment. He died the next day on September 13th, 2019. But Brandon's murder did not occur in a vacuum. He was being poisoned for months. We believe it started in February of 2019. Also in 2019, Brandon met a female. A mysterious woman enters the picture. Brandon's case needs to be reopened. He did not cause the injuries that were inflicted upon his body. Brandon was bruised from head to toe. Please watch this episode all the way through. Please help us spread the word of Brandon's case. Help us solve the mystery of who murdered Brandon Embry. This is part 2. So if you're on this and you haven't seen part 1, make sure you go check out part 1 to get a big chunk of the story. So what we're going to talk about right now is we're going to actually go back to the beginning of 2019 before his murder. He met a girl, we think, in January on a dating app. She is supposedly, and I'm using words carefully, supposedly from South Carolina. And he didn't really tell you about her, did he?
No, he didn't. So it was early February, and my daughter and her cousin and my son were they were hanging out together, and he said that he was dating a girl, but he didn't think it was going to work out. Or actually, he said he had been seeing a girl and he didn't think it was going to work out because she was going back to Russia.
Okay.
So that was early February.
Okay. Now this girl claims that they spent Valentine's Day together. Is that correct?
Yes. So after my son is murdered, this female contacts the family and says that she was Brandon's girlfriend, and she gives a lot of details about him, about his job, details of his life. It was very strange in the way it was presented, because it was almost like she was giving this testimony to prove that she knew him. Yeah. So even right off the bat, it was just a very strange communication. And this went to my daughter-in-law, and my daughter-in-law was really put off by it. So she really didn't want to communicate with her because she just felt like the whole Facebook message was just very strange. But she did pass it on to me. And as soon as I saw it, I ended up contacting the police, because my thought was, if she was a friend, if she was someone who knew Brandon and had been spending time with Brandon, she could have information or answers about what had happened, because the whole situation didn't make any sense to us.
Yeah.
And I learn more about her. I ask her if, we can talk so I can learn more about Brandon, what was going on in his life. And then I tell her I also want to learn about her.
Yeah.
And she tells me that she met Brandon on the dating app called Hinge. And she said that they met in January, but she will also tell me different versions of this. That she'll tell me that at one time she told me that she had known him for 3 years. She tells me a few different stories, but she always says that they met on this dating app. And
so that part of the story is probably true. It's just all the other stuff around it is lie.
Yes. I feel like with her communications that I did figure out that she's a pathological liar, but there will always be these shreds of truth to what she would say.
Yeah.
So after he had told this to my daughter, and it wasn't something that she mentioned to me because like he was saying, it wasn't going to work out, and we really just didn't talk a lot about, you know, just the dates. If it had been something serious, I feel like he would have told me about it, and she would have also.
Yeah.
But they just didn't even really talk about it. And so later in the month, I was cooking and I get the call from this hospital, and they tell me that they have my son in the hospital and that he had to be intubated.
Now, this is February 2019.
Yes, a little over 6 months before he was murdered. Okay. But I get this call and they're telling me he had already been there for a couple of days, and they're just now calling me. And, you know, I was just taken aback, and I'm thinking, well, why is he there? They really didn't tell me a lot over the phone.
Was he in the ICU?
He was in the ICU.
I have a question to go follow up with this. Did they say if anybody had been there with him at all?
They didn't.
It's kind of weird that they wouldn't inform the family.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, why did they take so long to contact me?
Yeah.
And so I get the call, I go to the hospital, and they really can't tell me why he's there. They were saying that when they tried to take the intubation out, that he was, I don't know what the right word was, but it was like he didn't understand, like, you know, that they can freak out basically because they don't realize that they've been put under. Yeah. And then when they bring them up, it's like this shock. And
so he was
because he was
coma.
Pardon?
They put him in an induced coma?
Yes.
They did? Okay.
Yeah. They tried to take the intubation out, and because he's such a big guy, he's very strong, they then immediately put him back under.
Oh, wow.
So, and I didn't see any of this. Honestly, they really just didn't give me a lot of communication about what had happened. And it's going to be much later that I finally request the medical record. And I asked them for everything. I wanted the doctor's notes, the nurse's notes, everything they could give me. And they were very good about that. They send me over 500 pages of notes.
I got a question before we go any further. Are you listed as his proxy or next of kin for the hospital? Or were you?
I don't know as far as that, because he had never been to that hospital before, and that was also in a different county. Okay. So what had happened was that he was at work, and they noticed that he was acting just like in an altered state, strange. They thought maybe he was on something. So they sent him to go take a drug test.
And what day was this?
It was the first thing in the morning. It was Monday morning, February 18th.
Okay.
So it had been right after Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. And he stops at McDonald's, and I guess someone there also noticed that something seemed wrong. They called the police. The police called the ambulance, and Brandon didn't really understand that something was wrong. And someone said that he was vomiting outside, but he didn't know he was vomiting. And they put him in the ambulance. They take him to the ER. The ER then admits him, and they said that he was having respiratory distress. And Brandon really didn't understand what happened to him. I don't think he has a clear memory of what was, or didn't have a clear memory of what had happened. Mm-hmm. So he goes to the ER. He's having respiratory distress. They don't really know why. They do not count it as pneumonia. He's not breathing correctly. And so they end up intubating him. And also in the ER, before any type of sedation or anything, he kept falling into a coma at that point. So they take him to ICU, and then they end up putting him on dialysis. And I never know this. They never told me that they put him on dialysis. Until I get the medical record, I did not know that. The doctors, the nurses, no one told me. If they would have told me that he had been put on dialysis, if I would have known that fact, I could have understood more of what was going on. They didn't tell me he had respiratory distress. They really didn't explain anything to me. And they wondered if he had taken some kind of synthetic drug to explain what had happened. But then when I go back through the notes, there is a certain medication, and I will get you the name of it. It starts with an F. That and dialysis are the two things that they recommend to treat for antifreeze poisoning. And I start going through the medical record, and he has all the symptoms of antifreeze poisoning. One of the big things is they put his urine under the microscope, and they found these calcium oxalate crystals. And this is also a big sign of antifreeze poisoning. And then, as I mentioned in the first segment, when the ER doctor shows me the urine bag, it has all of those particles in it. And he said the kidneys were breaking down, but I think it was also the calcium oxalate crystals that was showing up as a sediment, but they didn't put it under the microscope that time.
Yeah. Oh. So everybody knows antifreeze is very sweet. Years ago, they had to change the color of it because when you ingest it, it tastes sweet to taste. It doesn't taste like a poison. So they had to change the color of it. It's bright, almost like a green now. And it comes in stages of what it does to break down your body, but it's very easy to slip antifreeze in somebody's soda or like a spaghetti sauce. Granted that the color might make things a little funky. I believe there was a case where they put it in the spaghetti sauce and it made it almost like a weird grayish tint.
Oh, wow.
But that's what it does to, it's very easy to slip somebody antifreeze. Because if they drink soda, like say me, I drink Mountain Dew and it's the same color of antifreeze.
Wow.
So it would be very easy to put it in my drink. I drink mostly water, so thankfully, but does Brandon did he drink soda?
He drank soda, he did drink energy drinks. And one thing that this female would keep mentioning is that he drank these, he would buy gallons of diet sweet tea.
Okay.
And that also is something that the cap comes off and can be recapped. Yeah. And it was odd to me how she would just reiterate so many times that he drank this tea. So February, he was in the ICU for 5 days. And that was the 18th through the, I believe it was the 22nd. Through the 22nd. And then in April, he goes back to the ER, and he has syncope, which is like he's just falling unconscious. just, several times. And he also had severe stomach pain and nausea and vomiting.
And that is one of the symptoms, especially the severe stomach pain. Ethylene glycol poisoning is painful.
So that was April. And then in June, he goes to the urgent care center. And again, he's having the severe stomach pain. He's just, not feeling well. He says he feels like really hot, and just really keeps coming up with these same symptoms and feeling very ill, mysteriously just feeling very sick. And then a time that he didn't go to the emergency care or the urgent care, there was another time in between June and his death, though, that he was texting me and he was very sick. He was repeatedly throwing up. He was very sick. He said that he hit his head and he almost went unconscious, but from the texting, I think he was actually falling unconscious and didn't even realize it.
Oh, wow. Oh. Oh.
I think that time that there was someone in his apartment, and again, like with the time that when he's found, there was water running, and the time that he texted me, there was also water running, and or water spilled. I should say, correct that. There was water spilled in that first bathroom, and I don't think he knew how to explain that, and he was thinking that it came from upstairs, and he thought people were working upstairs, but I think someone was in his apartment.
Oh, wow. And he was so out of it, he probably, even if the person started there, he might not even realize that somebody was with him. Do you know if any of these coincide with her being around, female number one?
Yes. So February, she was given some type of citation. So that was in the state of North Carolina, and it was right around Valentine's Day. It's public record, so anyone can see that. And I believe it was February 15th that the citation is dated. So it may not be that exact day that she got it, but that's when it was filed.
So Valentine's Day, if I'm calculating correctly, would have been on a Thursday.
Yeah, I think that would be Thursday.
So you figure if you're gonna this is just throwing it out there. If you're gonna come spend Valentine's Day with somebody, it's on a Thursday, you're probably gonna stay the weekend.
Right. And she would say that, like she said that she spent Valentine's Day, and then she had also said Valentine's weekend. So she had put it both ways. And something that I learned about the ethylene glycol poisoning, that it can take like 6 to 12 hours processing.
Yes.
And she also told me that she spent basically every weekend with him up until the time that he died.
You figure she stayed the weekend and she left Monday or even Sunday, because he might have just been, because the way that poison works, you start feeling sick, you start feeling icky sometimes the first day, and then the second day there's a next level, and then by the third day you're like sick on death row type sick, So,
and there's no telling what it was put in. There's no telling what had poison in it.
Yes, because if she poisoned a whole bottle of iced tea, he might have been drinking iced tea, 2 days, you don't know when it was done for him to get sick. So when he passed away and you finally got in contact with her. What was her demeanor?
Very talkative. The first time that she communicated, she sent this very, very long message, and then I immediately responded to her, and that would have been, I believe, like on the 19th of September, and Brandon had passed on the 13th. But she didn't answer back until the 27th of September. So there was this long break. And then when she finally responds, she says that she was indeed his girlfriend, and she said that he was the love of her life, and that she goes on to say they were going to open this bank account together, that they were going to move in together. And she just reiterates how close they were. And yet I had never heard of her. Only my daughter, she had only been mentioned.
Yeah. And I'm laughing right now, and I'm sorry I just did that because it's laughable. Like,
yeah,
if you are if he was the love of your life, you would have responded back either immediately or that night, and you wouldn't have waited how many 10 days?
Right. And you wouldn't stop. If this is the love of your life, and you're finding something out, you wouldn't stop trying to
find out,
contact someone. And everything about her communication from that point on is extremely odd, extremely bizarre. It's almost immediately after a few exchanges that she asks me if he was cremated. And she tells me that she went to his apartment to check on him. And she tells me a different version than what I will say what happened, because I do believe the witness has a more accurate account of what happened. Yeah. So she tells me that she's knocking on the door, that she starts banging on the door, and a neighbor comes out and says, I think he passed away. And then she says that she almost faints. She says that she has MS and she has her cane with her. And she says that the neighbor has a lot of nerve to tell her this, and I never really quite understood that expression.
Yeah.
Then I end up talking to this neighbor, and this neighbor tells me that she comes over, she just knocks on the door, nothing dramatic like what she said. Yeah. And the neighbor says, I'm sorry, I think he's passed away. And she says, okay, thank you. And she shakes the neighbor's hand, which I find a very odd gesture. If you found out that the love of your life died and you just want to shake hands with someone, it's almost to me like she was congratulating, like, I want to shake your hand because that's good news to me.
Yeah.
Is it that characteristic to me doesn't make any sense. She did not have a cane. And then the witness said that she got in her vehicle and made a phone call.
Now, you started getting all kinds of bizarre messages from her, talking about kind of dreams and all these weird, kooky messages from her that kind of dropped hints and clues about the crime scene. And nobody knew about the crime scene but the police, and you knew some of it because from cleaning up, which we'll get into later. But tell me a little bit about some of the exchanges, because they're bizarre, and I don't understand how, if you love this person, how you would act this way.
So she tells me It starts in November. Well, she may have even started talking about the dreams before then, but there were enough red flags to me that I start recording her, because I feel like that she was there. She knows too much. She's telling me this is something that she's dreaming, but it was way too many details. I think when I first got really suspicious that she was there was that she asked me in a message if he was found on the bed or on the ground. And I knew that there had been blood all over the bed, but he lived in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment, and it had not been put out where he was found at all. So she had already narrowed it down to the bedroom. And I thought, well, how does she know he wasn't found in the kitchen or the living room, the hallway, anywhere? He could have been leaving his apartment on his way out the door. So right away, when she had narrowed it down to the bedroom, I thought that that was a red flag.
Wake up, wake up. He's like, what? Fuck. I was like, were you sleeping over by that closet? And he's like, no, I was trying to sleep with you. I was like, you sure you didn't get up and go stand by that closet? He's like, positive. And then I told him about this dream. He's like, honey, it's a dream. Go back to bed. So then it happened like 3 more times between June and September. And I told him every time it happened. He was just white as a ghost. And he's like, honey, I don't know much about dreams. It's just a dream.
Yeah. Then later she tells me things through dreams that I won't even be able to put together until a year later when I get the crime scene photos. There were things that she knew that I didn't know, even after being to inside his apartment, seeing damages, seeing areas where there was blood. She had details that no one else could know.
Unless they were there.
Unless they were there.
Unbelievable.
The police had went through the crime scene. They took the initial photos, and then they started cleaning things up and moving things around, putting things in boxes. So I don't see items that she's talking about in these dreams because they've already been moved and thrown away or put in boxes. There was water damage. My husband had thrown things away. But one of the first things that she starts talking about is that she starts talking about how Brandon took sleeping pills. And I didn't know of him taking any kind of sleeping pills. And she tells me that he takes the same sleeping pills that she does and that they are the Walmart brand. And I didn't really pay a lot of attention to that. It's just like thinking, okay, like sleeping pills, but yeah. It was just a lot of like what she would say. I would listen because I knew there were partial truths to what she would say. But like I said, I had no frame of reference because I hadn't seen the actual crime scene yet. So when I get the crime scene photos, then I see these Walmart brand bottles, Equate brand sleep aids. And there are 2 or 3 bottles. The reason why I don't know if there are 2 or 3 is because the way the crime scenes are, they are like in the crime scenes. But the detectives are sweeping things. So I don't know if it's a bottle that has been moved, but there are definitely at least 2, possibly 3 double strength 32 tablets per bottle. And in the crime scene are these blue capsules, and the capsules are squeezed out. You can see that they've been squeezed, and then there's like a few left, and they were actually under the bed. And so she's trying to allude to maybe he was trying to commit suicide and he took a bunch of sleeping pills. But the thing is who would squeeze the liquid out? If someone was trying to do something like that, they would take a bunch of pills. Like nobody would take the time to squeeze the liquid out of these pills. And so when the crime scene photos come, because then, and the toxicology had not come back, the autopsy had not been done, and she's talking about these sleeping pills, and come to find out, the main ingredient in the sleeping pills that she's talking about is diphenhydramine, which is also Benadryl. So then this conversation, the audio it was like either the 14th or 15th of November. And then the autopsy comes back on the 18th. And she's already talked about this Benadryl, this diphenhydramine. And what comes back, the only thing that came back in his system, there were no drugs. Later talked to the toxicologist, and he tells me there were no compounds of any type of like synthetic marijuana, no meth, no heroin, no type of street drugs. And the only thing that is found in his system is a high level of Benadryl. The medical examiner called it Benadryl, but it was listed as diphenhydramine on the toxicology. And so that was the only thing that was found in his system, and she knew about it. She knew about these capsules. She was saying that, you know, they were the same brand that she took.
I'm stressed out at the moment, and I don't want to be stressed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just want him to come home, and he's never coming home. I'm never going to get a phone call. I'm never going to get another I love you. This is just bullshit. The only thing I could tell him is like sleeping pills and energy pills and testosterone. Oh, God, I'm so stressed out now. So I called my brother, but that's not it. So stressful to me.
Yeah. Try not to let it stress you out.
He had a lot of sleeping pills. I know that much.
Mm-hmm.
But would he took too many of them? I don't think so. You know, I can't see him doing that either. I don't see him doing anything to, like, jeopardize his life.
But just, this is what they call guilty knowledge. And she had a lot of guilty knowledge. And, you know, she's alluding that he may have taken these pills, and he was drugged. He was drugged with those capsules.
Mm-hmm. And it was a high dose. So, and they're taking his blood. We don't know when the assault on him occurred, but we know around when it occurred. And he, you know, so it's not like he took the drugs right before. He was unconscious when you guys got there. So it's not like
this is something that had been really hard trying to figure out what happened, because the police never developed a timeline. And without that timeline, you know, even now I say, without knowing exactly when he went down, when he was unconscious, you can't say how much Benadryl was in his system. So the toxicologist said that they didn't think it was a toxic amount, but again, they can't say that because they didn't determine what day he went down and how many days, because it has what they call that half-life. So every 9 hours, the Benadryl is half as strong as it was when it was initially administered. So I go back to the fact that the ER doctor said that he had been down for several days. And what threw me off was trying to figure out, okay, well, how long was he actually down? Was that they did the search warrant on his phone, and Tuesday night it was saying that he had a 13-minute phone call with someone. And I also didn't understand this, which later I compare my phone records, and I tried to call him at 8 o'clock, around 8 o'clock, and he didn't answer. 8 p.m. And then he supposedly has this phone call Tuesday night at 9:30 for 13 minutes. But then I call him only 30 minutes later and he still doesn't answer.
Yeah, that's odd. You know, if your mother calls you, it's understandable if you're not available to take the call. But if she calls you back again 2 hours later, you're like, oh, something might be up. I need to answer this phone call, see what my mom wants.
He definitely would have called me back if he was home, but I had rationalized it like maybe he was out somewhere. He was busy and that's why he didn't answer me right away. But from what I was told from this phone call was this person was saying that he was home and that she talked to him and he was fine. He was just like basically hanging out at home. There's a lot of strange things that haven't been explained yet.
The person he spoke to supposedly on that night, I should say, was another female who is from Virginia. And we're going to talk about that on our next part of this story. I'm Mizzy, and I'm a mixed girl in a mixed up world. Make sure you come back for the next part of our story. Thank you.